What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. The Pittsburgh Steelers just finished their Week 9 Monday Night Football matchup with the Chicago Bears at home, and it was a typical Steeler primetime matchup against a lower quality opponent. It was a game that we should have won very easily and were in control of for much of the game, but somehow seemed to make it worth about 6 heart attacks on the way out of the game. Pittsburgh can never just do it easily. It's always playing up to a really strong opponent where it's a close game and it just winds up being a nail biter, or they play down to a worse opponent and it becomes a nail biter anyway. And it just Pittsburgh fans having to stay up on Monday nights and just watch this drivel. As Pittsburgh survived their matchup, Pittsburgh did win this game 29-27. Again, Chicago is they came into the game, I think 3-5 was their record. They're kind of rebuilding right now. Allen Robinson is kind of their standout on offense. He's been kind of quiet this year. Justin Fields at quarterback. He's kind of in that Lamar Jackson role where he hasn't really refined his passing yet. He's got a strong arm, but his decision making and his accuracy really aren't the best yet. He's really just learning. He's great with his feet, but not so good with his eyes or his arm just yet. Dave Montgomery came back off injury. They've been using rookie Khalil Herbert a lot in this offense. So again, very young offense, new quarterback, in a rebuilding phase. They're not a bad team by any means, but they're not anything great. Pittsburgh should have handled this one quite easily, but as they say, a win is a win, right? Pittsburgh escapes with a 29-27 victory in a game that was way too close for comfort. With a lot of things on our side, field goals and certain calls from referees and just bounces, things just had to go our way to get our 4th straight win. But that being said, we have now won 4 games in a row, and we are record-wise now right up there with everyone else. We are 1 game behind Baltimore in the division, but I'll get into the whole bigger picture here in a second. Pittsburgh, heading into the 4th quarter, was up by, I think, 14 points. I believe it was 20-6 heading into the 4th quarter. Just 6 points given up through 3 quarters. Defense was looking very, very good, getting good pressure, covering the receivers pretty well. Montgomery had a couple nice carries, but nothing special. Chicago had nothing to show for the offense, really. And all Pittsburgh had to do was not make any mistakes, and we made mistakes. We turned the ball over, we gave short fields, and just made the game way, way too close. There are some positives to come out of this game, but we have to clean up a lot of things. Stat-wise... But again, to kind of finish off here, we were up 20-6 in the 4th quarter, allowed the Bears to get back in it and actually get a 1-point lead because one of our scores, Chris Boswell missed the extra point, so they were actually up by 1. We had to drive the field with thankfully they gave us some time. They gave us 3 minutes on the clock left when they came down and scored on us. The defense, who was good all game, allowed a couple of touchdowns late, especially to take the lead, just not clutch in the big time there for the defense. And we had to come back down, drive the field. Boswell had to hit a field goal, and Chicago had to go for a 65-yarder to try and win the game at the end. From the back angle, it looked like the ball hit the crossbar. It did not. It was way short, but it looked like it was even closer than it was. So, like I said, my heart is still racing. Now, I apologize that I didn't get a review out last week, and I apologize that this one is late, but I'm still catching up on life, and a lot to get into. Big Ben, 21 of 30. Very solid numbers completion-wise. 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That is 4 consecutive wins for the Steelers in 4 games in a row with touchdowns for Ben and no interceptions. I think over the 4-game winning streak, he has, 6 touchdowns? I think 6 touchdowns and no picks, so he's been conservative with the ball. Smaller yardage numbers, but again, if you're 21 of 30 with no turnovers, you feel pretty good about that. 205 is nothing special, but Ben did hold the ball pretty well as far as decision-making goes. Couple of throws late he was forcing that could have gotten picked off. You got to watch those, especially late in the game. But yeah, wide receiver separation has not been our strength for much of this year. And the offensive line did get Ben sacked several times back there. There was a play that Ben threw a ball on that was almost considered a fumble and returned for a touchdown. So it was the right call, but we got lucky they didn't call it the other way on us. Najee Harris, not terribly impressive, but still made his mark. 22 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown, plus 3 catches for 16 yards. So it's his most pedestrian receiving day of the year. They didn't split him out a lot. They didn't get a lot of wheel routes or ins and outs from the running back spot this time. Najee, just 3 catches, 16 yards. But running the ball, you got to be a little concerned. 22 for 62. That's 2.8 yards a carry. That is under 3 yards a carry. Najee did break one really nice one behind pulling center Kendrick Green coming in at the guard. They did one of those switch plays where the center goes out and the guard comes in. And Kendrick Green got a nice block for like a 12-yard Najee run. He also had a nice about 12-yard touchdown run in the first quarter, the first drive of the game. So a couple nice runs for Najee, but really nothing special. Under 3 yards a carry. The offensive line did not have the best day of their careers. Leader receiving-wise, Deontay Johnson, 5 catches, 56 yards. Drew a nice sideline pass interference. Had a couple of nice short plays that he broke some tackles and turned into 10 to 12-yard gains. Had a nice end around. Actually, in the running game, all 3 receivers, Washington, Claypool, and Deontay, all had jet sweep plays for 10 yards in this game. So that adds 30 yards to the rushing game off the jet sweep, which worked pretty nicely in this game. Good calls from Canada in that regard. Deontay, again, played pretty well as your leader. Pat Freiermuth, biggest offensive star for me. If I'm giving out game balls, Pat Freiermuth is getting it. This is now the 4th consecutive game that I've seen this guy rise and rise and rise. And you see the chemistry with Ben getting better and better. You see him getting more and more goal line and third down targets. He's becoming exactly what he was drafted to be. A hard-nosed, tackle-breaking, sure-handed, physical, Heath Miller-style tight end. Good to see Jesse James back in Pittsburgh in this game, but he's playing for Chicago and didn't get to do much. But good to see Pat Freiermuth developing that chemistry with Ben, especially on those key downs, those 3rd and 4th downs. He caught the big touchdown on 4th down in the corner of the end zone last week to go ahead for the win. He caught 2 touchdowns in this game, one on a Ben extension play in the corner of the other side of the end zone, and the other one was a nice over-the-top kind of Randy Moss play where he got body position, boxed out, jumped up, cradled the ball. Beautiful play by Freiermuth on that. He's become very important to this offense. He's probably our number 1 target besides Deontay right now for the last couple of weeks, and I like what I'm seeing out of Freiermuth. He's physical, he's clutch, he has good hands, and he's important to this team. So the 2 rookies, Najee and Freiermuth, are becoming our leaders out there. Claypool got injured toward the end of the game and did not return. He did have one nice sideline catch, a jump ball that he caught a beautiful catch on. James Washington also caught a 42-yard pass where the ball was lobbed up and it kind of floated because it was tipped. And Washington came back to the ball and made a nice catch. So all 3 receivers getting involved, but just like 1 or 2 plays apiece, and that's about it. But Deontay and Freiermuth did well. Offensive line, not really feeling it. The announcers made mention today about how Dan Moore has played kind of under the radar solid this year. And I guess for a rookie he has. But man, he was getting blown up today. Had at least 1 or 2 holding calls. I think he was against Roquan Smith today, who's obviously a very good lineman. But Roquan Smith was beating this guy off the ball once or twice in the running game. At least 2 different sacks on Ben where he got blown completely apart. Not a good game for Dan Moore. Big time problem there. Also Kendrick Green. Like I said, Green did have the one nice play where he sprung on the reverse play with the guard, where the guard came in and he pulled out. He's a good pulling center. He's good on his feet. He's good downfield. He's physical. He gets a good head of steam. He's a strong guy when he gets moving. But in stationary blocks, there was a time, I forget who got the sack, but he completely just missed the guy. It was a one-on-one play. He went to the inside for a double team, to the outside for a double team to take one of the ends, and one of the either linebackers or interior linemen came bowling right through and just killed Ben. So Kendrick Green and Dan Moore, not the finest day. Another penalty out of Trey Turner, who has not played all that well to me this year. I know that we had 1 or 2 other penalties on the offensive line. Overall, not the best thing for us. Thankfully, the Chicago defensive line could not stop lining up offsides. It happened to them at least 4 different times, including on, I think, 2 third downs that resulted in first downs, and also on a, what was the other, there was another play that it happened on too. The fourth quarter drive when we're trying to go down and tie the game. So it happened quite a bit to us. We got quite lucky on that. Chicago their veterans wound up just lining up offsides and being caught like 4 different times. So that's one of those things that Pittsburgh got very lucky on. Defensively, again, through 3 quarters, nothing but 2 field goals. Played very, very well. But the 4th quarter, all of a sudden, Chicago winds up with 27 points. So 3 touchdowns in pretty important times. David Montgomery sprang a couple of nice runs. We had a hard time tackling. The biggest thing for us, there was one play out of Allen Robinson down the sideline that got them into plus territory. But we had a hard time with covering tight ends. Cole Kmet, I think, had his probably career high with like 89 yards receiving in this game. Terrell Edmonds had a bad game. He wasn't covering very well. He's one of those guys that does a nice job rushing, getting into the running game as a tackler, but he had a hard time covering. It also feels like Minka Fitzpatrick is like a step off too. He led the team with 8 tackles tonight, but that means a lot of guys were catching the ball in his area. And some of those things are zone plays because our zone wasn't working that well tonight, especially late in the game. But or I don't know if it's just Minka being out of position or trying to catch up with the receiver that the corner beats. But I didn't like what I saw out of that tonight. Arthur Maulet got beat on the Allen Robinson play. Edmonds got beat by Cole Kmet at least 2 or 3 times. There was also an Arthur Maulet. He got attacked twice on a touchdown drive. Once, I think both times to Darnell Mooney. Once was a deep ball and then once was a corner of the end zone play that he got beat on. I like what Maulet has done this season. He's underrated for us, but he got beat twice badly on the play. So Maulet, Edmonds didn't have the best game. Devin Bush was quiet. Joe Schobert's been very quiet at linebacker. We're not getting a lot of inside linebacker production from this team. And aside from Cam Hayward, we're not getting a lot of interior lineman rush at all. I know there's a lot of injuries there, but Watt and Hayward are the 2 guys that are carrying this defense right now, and it seems like a 2-man show. So we got to see some more from our other guys on defense, especially when it counts. We did such a good job for 3/4 of the game and just blew up at the end. Defensive stat-wise, let's talk about TJ Watt. 3 more sacks, another batted ball. Did he have a forced fumble again too? He might have. 3 sacks in this game and another batted ball. He has been tremendous. I think he had 8 tackles between assisted and solo. He just played very well in the run game. He got off the edge. He was tormenting Fields. Aside from his 3 sacks, he had like 3 other pressures. So like 6 pressures in this game that altered plays, including a batted ball and 3 sacks. Watt is paying dividends. He's the best defensive player in the NFL, and I won't hear another word against him. He deserves that DPOY at the end of the year this year. What a player. Also, like I said, Cam Hayward batted another ball, which also resulted in an interception. He batted the ball to himself and then caught it out of the air like the big, athletic, powerful man that he is. Excellent stuff out of Hayward. Played pretty well in the run game as well, although he did get beat on a couple of missed tackles later in the game, but played pretty well overall. Taco Charlton came in this game. I didn't see him play last week. I watched the game late and hazy last week, so I didn't get to really see. I didn't see him play last week. But Taco Charlton, the former Dallas Cowboy, who was drafted high and then has been kind of bouncing around practice squad bound for a while, played pretty well today. Came in, got 3 tackles, and was called quite a bit. Had a couple nice run-stopping plays. I like what he did on the interior line. Hayward was in and out again, injured and came back. Buggs at one point was injured, so we're already down 2 All-Pros. Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt are 2 of the best in the world at their positions, and they've been out for quite some time. Tuitt's been out the entire season. Alualu is out for the rest of the season. So we need more internal production besides Hayward. Loudermilk has played very well in the small times that he's been in there. I want to see more of him. And Taco Charlton, if he's going to play like this in the run game and get some interior pressure, let's get him in there more as well. Special teams was a big mixed bag today. Another big reason why we did well and did poorly at the same time. James Pierre got a forced fumble on a nice hit on a return that should have iced the game for us, but it did not. Pierre got the forced fumble, and Chris Boswell got the fumble recovery. So way to take back-to-back games with physicality and hits. Boswell, thank you. Speaking of Boswell, 3 for 3 from field goals, including a 54-yarder, a 52-yarder, and a game-winning 40-yarder. So big day for him, plus the fumble recovery. First person to ever hit 2 50-plus yard field goals in Heinz Field, plus then went ahead to hit the game winner. So excellent stuff, but also missed an extra point, which caused us to be down in the fourth quarter, which we needed the field goal to win in the first place. So missed the extra point, which cost us, but also made up big time in 3 clutch field goals as the game got later and secured us the win. So Boswell, I know with the missed extra point sucks, but he had a good game overall. Presley Harvin had a really on and off game, real bad first half, shanked a punt, and then had a bouncing punt that wound up rolling into a good punt, but it was a bad punt initially. We just got lucky on the bounce. Another lucky roll for the Steelers in this game. But then second half had 2 punts inside the 10-yard line, and a third one was almost down at the 1. So really good second half. So very inconsistent. Bad first, good second. Ray McLeod, second week in a row that he has fumbled a kickoff return, and this was clutch. This was the one thing you couldn't do. When Pittsburgh's ahead by a touchdown like that, you cannot fumble a ball on a return like that. It's the one mistake you cannot make. I don't care if you get a small return or you down it, you can't fumble, and that's 2 in a row. And Tomlin seems pretty upset about it. I would not be surprised if we wind up with somebody else like Steven Sims or even Deontay Johnson maybe returning kicks. Probably not Johnson because he's starting receiver now. He's the number 1 option at receiver. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get somebody like a Steven Sims or someone else like that returning kicks now, because he's a solid receiver and he's a good returner and he's electric, but he has not returned very well this season. No touchdowns, no gigantic runbacks, and now 2 consecutive fumbles. So you got to look at that as a problem. Penalties. Pittsburgh got lucky on some penalties. On the one Chicago touchdown that was called back after it was caught, I believe, by Jimmy Graham. There was a block right outside the tight end tackle box where blocks are allowed, where chips are allowed. That was a questionable call. I think it could go either way. You could call it or not call it. They called it, which took back the Chicago touchdown, which helped us out a lot. Chicago lining up offsides, those were good calls, but we still got lucky on those because those were veterans who know better. And there was a call at the end of the game where Cassius Marsh, welcome back to Pittsburgh, Cassius Marsh, gets a big former Steeler, gets a big sack on Big Ben to end the drive and return the ball to Chicago, being up by 2 points maybe even less. I forget the game scenario, but Marsh gets a sack on Ben and then goes over and looks at the bench, and he goes back to walk off and he bumps the referee, and the referee threw the flag for looking at the bench too long. But he was looking at the bench from like his side of the 50. He was all the way across the field. He didn't walk over to the bench. He sacked Ben, stayed on the field a little long. Yeah, he was staring the bench down, intimidation, whatever, but it was a bad call. It was a bad call, especially when it's going to extend a drive for a team that is either barely ahead or barely behind. In a close game like that, when a team's getting off the field and you're changing possession, you cannot call a penalty on someone for looking at the bench. I thought it was initially called on his little spinning karate kick he did after the sack, but it wasn't called on that. It was called because he stared the bench down from across the field, but he was so far away that it's a ridiculous call, and they really got screwed on that. So we got lucky on that one. A couple calls Pittsburgh got lucky on. But like I said, at the end of the day, you take the result. You live with what happens to you, and Pittsburgh gets away with a 29-27 win on the Boswell field goal. We've now won 4 games in a row and go up to, I believe it's 5-3, I believe we are now. 1 game behind Baltimore in the division with 2 head-to-heads to play. We're now ahead of Cincinnati and Cleveland, plus beating them as well. So we've got the tiebreaker on them. And there's not many teams in the AFC that have better records than us. There's 2 teams, Baltimore and maybe I think Tennessee. That's about it. I think we're third record-wise, tied in the AFC. So being 1 game back in the division with 2 head-to-heads against that team coming up, you got to feel pretty good. We're going now to play Detroit, who is considered the worst team in the NFL, so you hope for no trap game and no letdown against a bad team like Pittsburgh is wont to do. So you hope to continue the Freiermuth and Najee offense with conservative Ben and playing solid on defense, clean the penalties up on the offensive line, clean the blocking up a little bit, and clean up the late defensive meltdowns. Cover a little better, stay healthy, and hope to make a run and continue this because Pittsburgh is emerging at the right time. So what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below who your stars of the game were. What did you like and what didn't you like? Like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more of these Steeler videos, and I will try to bring you this one earlier next week. Thank you guys for sticking with me and still watching these videos after being posted late. Go Steelers. I will see you soon.